Hello and welcome to ETBFSI. I'm in conversation with Abhishek Gandhi. He's the co-founder of RupeeCircle, a fintech company which operates into P2P lending space. Abhishek, welcome on the show.
Thank you so much.
The first thing I would like to understand from you is when you started this fintech company which is operating specifically into P2P lending and you're a co-founder, what made you think to enter into P2P lending space? What is the strategy did you adopted when you started this company?
So basically Ajit, he's my co-founder,
Okay.
and he's a graduate from IIT Bombay. He was working for Citi and Axis Bank for the last 12-13 years. So he was the one who was primarily building credit models, doing data analytics and risk modeling, credit underwriting for Citi and Axis Bank for their credit cards and personal loan customers. That is when we realized that the banks have a very rigid criteria of giving out loans. So you need to have a certain CIBIL score, you need to have a certain minimum income level,
Right.
or you need to have 3 years of ITR, which in fact majority of India's population actually fall through the gaps. Right. So that is where we saw the pain point. That is where we saw a lot of people not being able to get loans. Not saying that they were not credit worthy, but at least from a bank's minimum criteria, they were not meeting it.
Right.
So in fact, what we realized is that banks were actually giving loans to people who already have money, and those who are in real need of money have to go to the unorganized lending market. They get money at exorbitant interest rates, like 5-10% interest rates per month. In fact, even higher in certain cases, and also that after pawning a lot of their valuables, etc., etc. So we wanted to do something for this market. So we wanted to see how we could address this issue, how we could bring about a real change in financial inclusion, right? So getting them on board to the formal channels of credit, and then basically from then on they graduating to other financial products. On the other side, we were looking at multiple options. So we thought that we could do this by becoming a front end to other banks and NBFCs, or we could become an NBFC ourselves, or we could also do it in a P2P model. So that's where I came in basically, right? So that is where we thought that this could have a huge potential. We could get retail people to fund retail people, and ultimately it is all helping in the development of the poor, the needy, and in the development of the country itself, right? So some of these loans are going towards somebody's education, somebody's healthcare, somebody's livelihood, etc., etc. So it is people helping people, and theoretically the potential is infinite. So that is what attracted us most to the P2P market, and that is why we started on this journey.
So very well, in fact, a detailed answer. But now when we look at the lending space, which is hugely crowded, it looks like, because every fintech that is operating into the space, or every fintech that is emerging into the country is operating into the lending space. It looks like the payment rally is almost over and everybody is, coming in the lending space. How tough it is for you to compete with all these players, point number one. And point number two is also a lot of traditional banks have also started lending to MSMEs, SMEs, and some offering personal loans. So how are you actually going to crack this market?
Right. So from that perspective, I believe, yes, you're right that a lot of people are now entering the credit space. But what we have to also understand is the credit space in itself is actually huge, right? So even with all these banks, we're not able to solve the problem of credit.
Right.
And that is why we had these fintechs having to step in to basically fill in the gaps. Right. And even with these fintechs operating in this credit space, we think the market size and the potential that India itself has, it is actually immense, right? So there could still be room for even a few hundred or thousand more, right? So having said that, also each of these fintechs are addressing different issues, right? So somebody is working with, let's say, salary loans or payday loans. Somebody is working with consumer loans. Somebody is working with two-wheeler loans. Somebody is working with in the MSME, SME segment.
Right.
Somebody is attacking personal loans. So there are again multiple, let's say, verticals within that overall credit segment that need to be addressed, and each of them have their own nuances, right? Okay.
So yeah. How big is your book now? I mean, how much is what kind of loans you're offering? What is the ticket size that you're offering?
Sure. So in terms of the loans, the type of loans that we give, we basically are focused on the segment or the target population which is urban, mostly salaried, and people earning below 25,000 a month. So that is our major focus area. That is where we want to actually create or be able to give them loans.
Right.
We basically only do personal loans. These are all unsecured personal loans, so there's no collateral-backed loans as such. And our average ticket size for a loan is about 65 to 70,000.
Okay.
So we give loans starting as low as 25,000 to up to 2 lakhs. So that is the range that we operate in. In terms of tenure, we give loans from a 3-month to 36-month kind of tenure. And in terms of interest rates, again, they vary from 12% to 36%. So that is the zone that more or less we operate in. In terms of average ticket sizes, like as I mentioned, 65 to 70,000 is the average loan ticket size. Average tenure is about 12 to 15 months.
Right.
And average interest rate is about 24-25%, which is on a reducing balance basis.
Okay, so how many investors do you have on board right now, and how many customers, have you actually borrowed, have you lended?
Right. So we have more than 10,000 loan applications made to us, out of which we have given about 550 loans as of date. So there's a huge screening process at our end. So ultimately, we are a P2P player. We also have to ensure that these loans don't go bad, and we want to ensure that our lenders make the most returns on their investments. So we do a lot of multiple levels of screening of the application. A lot of that is done digitally, automatically, automatedly, and some of them have to still be done physically wherever required. So we do a multiple level of screening, and as I said, out of the 10,000 odd loan applications we would have received, we've given about 550 loans.
Okay.
On the lenders side, we have more than 2,000 registered lenders.
Okay.
And we are, out of which we have about 500 odd active lenders on the platform.
Okay. Do you see it's a hurdle when it comes to the cap which RBI has put on the investors who are going to put the money into the P2P lending? Do you see that is a hurdle?
I think the RBI has its reasons to limit let's say the lender exposure to 10 lakhs, even the borrower exposure to 10 lakhs, and per lender to per borrower exposure at 50,000. So they're trying to ensure that the space grows organically and in a controlled manner, rather than some people taking a lot of exposure. So yes, it is a constraint, but I think it is in the right direction for at least the space to develop and grow. Okay. And I think we are hoping that as time passes, RBI will reconsider and loosen certain restrictions around this.
Do you see some challenges with the regulations right now?
Yeah, so I mean, challenges with every regulation obviously is the bottleneck or the time it takes to get certain things done, and the regulatory compliances and all of that. But I think these are for the good, and as I mentioned, we don't want this industry to repeat the same mistakes that were made outside. So I think it is good to have regulation early in the day.
Okay. So what is the roadmap that you see for RupeeCircle in next 2 years?
So I think as RupeeCircle, we have huge potential in terms of the kind of market size that P2P as a concept and us as a company can have. So we see that in, let's say, 2 to 3 years time frame, we would be doing loans worth of 3 to 5,000 crores.
Okay. And how's the industry looking like? What is the growth that you see specifically into P2P lending industry?
In terms of P2P, the industry is also doing well. So all of them have exponential growth rates. So everybody is starting with a low base. So right now the growth is going well. And all of them are trying to find their own niche, trying to find their target customer segment and growing in that segment.
Don't you feel scared because this is a very dynamic industry at one side, but a very challenging industry where even big corporates don't want to pay once they borrow the money from the banks?
So that is where startups and FinTechs come in, right? So it is where the big boys don't want to enter or are still worried about the risk. That is where we as a company come in. We have the agility, the capability also to understand the market and be able to assess the risk and take constructive decisions on it. So I think yes, it is going to be challenging, definitely. But I think once the headwinds are over, we would definitely find ourselves in a good space.
More players are coming into this space now. Many people have already applied for P2P lending space. NBFC is also doing the similar work.
Right.
And like I said, I know that you're giving a tough competition to the traditional money lenders, but this space is actually growing rapidly.
Yeah.
What will be the major changes do you see specifically into this particular space in next 2 years?
Right. So I think you're right that there are a lot of people entering this space. but it is also for the good of the space itself, because there is also so far a lack of awareness. So not a lot of people are even aware of P2P as a concept. So we think all of them as peers, because any kind of investment or marketing or branding that they do, it also helps all other P2P players to develop the awareness about the company. Apart from that, it is also about what is the target segment that you're looking at, what is the credibility of the company itself to hold in the long run. And I think in the long run, yes, the space is going to get crowded, but we still feel that the space is still huge to accommodate everyone.
Thank you so much, Abhishek. It was nice talking to you. Those were really great insights. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
And thank you so much for watching ETBFSI. Stay tuned, stay upgraded, watch ETBFSI.